If Northern Ireland opts for integration in the EU, in Ireland, the EU will not stand on its way, Dr. Clarkson said. I presume that they will smother Northern Ireland in EU cash to try and keep things quiet. A tried and tested EU method, true, and Northern Ireland's integration into the EU system would be expedited. I don't think that would be a difficult position to arrive at. We could be full European members, full EU members this time next year. Northern Ireland and a united Ireland could be fully integrated into the European Union as a full and equal member. We would get shared with cash, and your children's futures would be better than yours. And you, as a parent, will have done a good job because you will have made your child's future safe, secure, and more safe and more secure than yours. The UK is over. It's gone. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Andy That's in the Bonnevilles podcast. It is the 8th, I think, of September, 2020. So, yeah, it's been a pretty shitty week for us, politically speaking, for us here in Northern Ireland. So we're going to talk about Boris Johnson's government. Basically, well, I'll explain what he's done in a second. But yeah, so welcome to the podcast. I guess I should do a little update first. What have I been doing? I finally got my solo album away to the record label with the sleeve and everything. Got the masters back. I think I explained all this in the last pod. Got the masters back. Got the sleeve art done. Got it all away. And I'm just waiting to hear back now from for a release date. So I'm pretty excited about that. So hopefully I'll have that soon. And as soon as it was really exciting, I sent the sleeve art to Robert and Carrie there over in Blues for the Red Sun, and I told them that I wanted the release because I'm doing the release with Motor Sounds Records and Style Records here for the UK, Ireland, and the rest of the world, and I wanted to do like a big fancy gatefold. So I said to Robert, when we work this out, we'll do. My copies coming over here have to be gatefold, and he said no, let's do them all gatefold. So I was really happy about that because I put a lot of work into. I did the sleeve as well, so I put a lot of work into that, and I'm very happy with it. So should hear something back pretty soon. So we're going to talk about this, and then at the end I'm going to do a record recommends from my cousin Barry Kerr, the musician and artist. I'm sure you know who he is. And if you don't, why not? So, yeah. So, we're going to do this. So, basically what's happened is the British government, Boris Johnson, I'll just bring you up to where we are real quick, couple of sentences. Britain voted for Brexit, you know this. Before the European Union could agree a trade deal with Britain, how Britain was going to, what sort of a relationship it was going to have with the EU, they had to negotiate what's called the Withdrawal Agreement. The problem that Britain had was Northern Ireland, because this border was going to be the only border that Britain had with the EU. Land border was our border in Northern Ireland, or as Dara O'Brien rightly puts, there is no Irish border in Ireland. The Irish border is in the sea. It's the British border in Ireland. So they had to negotiate that because the EU has to protect its market, which is what it is. Britain wants to protect its market, I guess, which is what it is. But the consensus, the general consensus, is that there's going to be a certain amount of deregulation within Britain after from January 21, and the European Union doesn't want leaking of goods, smuggling of goods, going into its market to undermine its market, which is what markets do. There's no such thing as a free market. All markets are constrained by rules and regulations, despite what the capitalists say. So the problem that we have in Northern Ireland is obviously because of our historical past, our troubles as they're referred to. There's a danger that if a physical border goes up along the old border, it will become targeted for paramilitaries to attack. And then that might lead to one thing, might lead to another, might lead to another. As the man says, if you put a camera up, they'll attack the camera. If you put a soldier up to protect the camera, they'll attack the soldier, etc., whatever, right? So they agreed then that what they would do is they would put the border would be in the sea, basically, so it would be at the ports of Larne and Warrenpoint and whatever. And it took 2 years to get there. It was very fraught, and but eventually they got there. It was the only sensible thing to do. And now that Britain is negotiating, we've only a couple of months left. The UK has a couple of months left to negotiate this trade deal, how it's going to trade with the biggest single market on the planet. It's what the European Union is, and how they're going to do that. And they have just pissed everybody off by saying that they're going to change certain aspects of the withdrawal agreement without consultation with the EU. They're just going to do this. Now that just makes the agreement null and void. That means it's become an ex-agreement. So I'm going to play you a quick video. This is a report from the BBC, who should be able to explain it a lot better than I can. And if they can't, shame on them. But they will. So here you go. Try this on.
Now, Boris Johnson's new bill to change the UK's Brexit deal with the EU will break international law, according to one cabinet minister. The Northern Ireland Secretary, Brandon Lewis, said the new legislation would go against the treaty in a specific and limited way. The former Prime Minister, Theresa May, has warned that the changes could damage trust in the UK over future trade deals. The latest round of trade negotiations between Britain and the EU started today. Our chief political correspondent, Vicky Young, was following them.
Mr Johnson, are we going to get a deal today? Are you confident?
He promised to get Brexit done, and the UK has left the EU. But now Boris Johnson's team is in a familiar place, trying to negotiate another deal. This time it's about how we'll trade with the EU from January. Progress is slow, but round 8 of the talks started today.
I'm confident that our negotiating teams and EU negotiating teams are all focused on getting a good outcome, both for our friends and partners in the EU and for us in the United Kingdom.
But there's another row brewing over the withdrawal agreement. Yes, the one which has already been signed, sealed and delivered. It agreed that Northern Ireland would continue to follow some EU customs rules. That would mean extra paperwork, checks and tariffs for some goods moving between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Now the government's introducing its own law so that UK ministers can decide how to apply the rules without the EU's agreement. The disapproval from...
Do you hear that? Without the EU's, they're going to apply their own rules without the EU's agreement. Now that just makes the whole 2 years of negotiating for the withdrawal agreement pointless. And I've been listening to a few journalists during this past couple of days, and they're saying their reports are coming from Brussels. The Brussels negotiators and MEPs, whatever, are absolutely exasperated. They can't believe that the UK has done this. And did you hear the word she used, the thing that Theresa May brought up? Here she is up on the screen. And she said that this is going to damage trust in the UK. Now, this is true. And you got to understand how important this is. When you think of the past couple of years in global politics, obviously the big fucking, the typhoon in the room is the US and Donald Trump. They've withdrawn from the Paris Climate Accords. They've withdrawn from the Iran nuclear agreement. They're trying to restart the Cold War with Russia, etc., etc. Trying to invade Iran. They've been fucking up the whole of North Africa, and many parts of the Middle East are on fire. Not just because of Donald Trump, but You get what I'm saying? But the withdrawal and the changing of the route, it's just changing. You're like, we're going to do this. We're going to agree to do this nuclear thing, and then next president comes in and he goes, oh fuck that, and he just throws it all out the window. That's really fucking bad, man. See, whenever you're talking about international diplomacy, that's really, really bad. You don't do that, and it's being taken. People are taking note of it. Other countries that you're going to trade with are taking note. They'll remember this. So when you go to them and say, can we organise a trade deal between us? Do you think Brazil or Argentina or Australia or wherever it is that the UK thinks that they're going to get these trade deals? I have no idea. Do you think they're not going to know? They're not going to think about this? Do you think they're not going to bring this up? Do you think this is not going to be in the back of their mind? But sure, you had an agreement with the EU and you've just decided to, right? So it's really, really fucking bad. And in international global politics, this is a bad move. It's a very, very reckless and very dangerous move. The other thing I should have mentioned, it completely fucking undermines the Good Friday Agreement, which is that's the so whenever they're saying the international agreements, they're talking about the Withdrawal Agreement. They're also talking about the Good Friday Agreement, which was the settled negotiation that brought peace to Northern Ireland in 1998. So, which is, it's so important in this part of the world that children born after it are called Good Friday Agreement kids, Good Friday Agreement children, because they never knew the war. You understand? That's how important it is. Now they're talking about pissing all over it. And this is why it's bad for us personally. Like, Brexit's bad enough for us. It's bad. Northern Ireland is the poorest part of the UK. It's a lot of the league tables that you don't want to be at the top of. We're at the top or close to the top. Already, without Brexit was going to make it worse. This is going to make it worse again. So, and it's been propped up by our own fucking ministers, which is disgraceful. But we'll talk about that in a sec. Play the rest of this video.
From this former Prime Minister was obvious.
The government is now changing the operation of that agreement. Given that, how can the government reassure future international partners that the UK can be trusted to abide by the legal obligations of the agreements it signs?
Okay. You hear what it's saying?
Another Conservative MP got this remarkable admission from the minister.
Where do you hear this?
Yes, this does break international law in a very specific and limited way.
That's not the kind of thing you hear.
This will break international law in a very specific and limited way. They're risking peace on this fucking island. You know that I'm a nationalist. You know I want to see a united Ireland. But I can't understand why anybody in the UK wants to remain in it under these buffoons, these wicked bastards. These men are driven. You got to understand who these people are. These Dominic Cummingses and Goves and David Camerons and Boris Johnsons and fucking cartoons like those. If you don't know who they are, they're put into boarding schools, elite boarding schools as they're called. I don't call them elite. That's what they refer to themselves as, and what they're fucking puppy dogs in the press refer to them as. They keep. I'm a big about language. You keep referring to these people as elite. You may as well just doff your cap and bend the knee every time they walk past you. They're not elite. Stop saying. Don't say that. Don't say the elites. They're not, unless you're taking the piss out of them or doing the inverted commas thing and air brackets or commas. They're not elite. They've been taken from their families as children and 7 years of age and groomed in boarding schools. They're told that they're better than everybody else. They're told that they're the empires of the masters of the universe, the emperors of the world, that they're born to rule. They're told this. Their education is all about this. You look at the Blair, Cameron, Johnson, whatever. They all went to the same fucking class. Not just the same school, the same class in the same school. Right? Maybe not Blair. I'm not sure about that one. But you get my point. So that's who these people are. And when they're talking about we're going to break an international agreement. By the way, do you know what the response from the chief lawyer of his That's the Northern Ireland minister, by the way, talking there. So that's the English Tory minister that is in charge of administrating Northern Ireland, where I live, right? He's talking about breaking the law in a limited and specific way. Do you know what his advisors and lawyers did? 10 minutes after he said that, they all fucking resigned. They all quit their jobs. He just admitted live on TV that they're going to break the law. Even a Tory minister can't do that. Well, he can do it, whether they get away with it or not. But there's no accountability for these people. Remember what I've always said? You can lie, you can cheat, you can steal. As long as you do it at the behest of the establishment, you will never, ever get punished. The worst that will ever happen to you is you'll get promoted sidewards, and keep your mouth fucking shut, and you'll get promoted upwards. That's the rules, man. That's the rules for these people. Not for us. Not for you and me. For them. Two worlds. Establishment and the rest of us.
Very often in the House of Commons, and he's not the only one who's surprised. The Labour leader told me the government shouldn't be acting in this way.
At the moment, what the government's doing, which in my view is wrong, is reopening old arguments that have been settled. A deal is there to be had.
Fucking fence stormer, you
let's negotiate, let's get that deal. That's what the public want, and move on.
Ministers insist the new law they want to introduce simply clarifies what was agreed with the EU last year. It doesn't rip it up completely. But even the government's top lawyer doesn't see it like that. He's resigned today because he thinks the plans are in breach of the government's obligations under international law. EU and UK officials will continue their talks tomorrow, with the British government accused of going back on old deals while they try to work on a new one.
Well, let's go live to Westminster, and Vicky joins us now. Vicky, what's going on behind the scenes there? What's the thinking behind this kind of possible change?
Well, I don't think Tory MPs could actually believe what they were hearing in the House of Commons today. The minister there admitting that this could break the law. Now, for a lot of them, this is about credibility. The UK is supposed to be setting an example around the world. There's a lot of unhappiness tonight amongst Tory MPs who say, how can we berate countries like Russia and China if we're undermining the rule of law ourselves?
Where the fuck where do Tory MPs get the balls to berate China and Russia? I'm going to explain to you exactly what the UK is. I'm going to link all this shit up, right? Towards the end of this, we're going to do a bit about empire. I'm going to go into a bit about empire. And if you don't know this, you should know this. We all should know this. We're going to link this. This should connect up. It connects up in my head, and I hope I can do it for you. But the fact that Tory MPs can sit there and go, this means we can't fucking tell Russia off. Fuck off.
So yes, the question, why now? Well, Brexiteers have for a long time not liked the withdrawal agreement. They don't like the fact Northern Ireland is treated differently from the rest of the UK. But let's face it, they did know that when they all signed up for it and voted for it. So could it be a negotiating strategy, trying to get compromises out of the EU, or maybe trying to force them away from the negotiating table? I think whatever it is, it's incredibly provocative, especially as we get to this crucial stage, trying to negotiate a future trade deal.
Vicky, many thanks again.
So there you go. Okay. So basically what's happened, if you're following this, is they're going to break the law. They're going to break their own... They say that they don't want... they don't like the fact that Northern Ireland is treated differently from the rest of the UK. Northern Ireland is different from the rest of the UK. Sorry, give me a sec. Just doing something here. Oh. Not to worry. Okay. So, Northern Ireland is different from the rest of the UK. It's different in so many ways, you wouldn't believe it. And the idea that that Great Britain, England, Scotland and Wales gave a two fucks about Northern Ireland sorry, no, I'm not buying that. I've seen no evidence of that ever. I can go back 800 years and go, no, you're full of shit, right? Now, we have ministers here in Northern Ireland, God help us, in a party called DUP. This is one of them, a guy called Sammy Wilson. says the DUP will not accept the EU deal. This is the withdrawal agreement. Now, the DUP lobbied hard. They broke the law as well with regards to the funding of the Brexit campaign. So they took dark money in to Northern Ireland, and then the laws in Northern Ireland are different from the rest of the UK, so they could then buy adverts in England promoting Brexit or for the Leave campaign, which the rest of the parties couldn't do. They were only allowed to spend a certain amount of money. These guys could spend whatever they wanted, and they did. And there was other things. But now, we here in Northern Ireland, we have the best educated dole queue in the world. Right? We're underemployed. We're underpopulated. The infrastructure, it's underdeveloped really, but it's fine. We're fairly well connected, right? We could have been the gateway to the UK and to Europe. As I said, overeducated, underemployed, English speaking, and uniquely, the only country in the world uniquely positioned between the UK, the EU, and who else? The US. Right? Now, whenever Brexit was announced, the first thing, if our politicians were worth, if they were worth a penny, they should have realised that we are in a unique position because the problems with the border, the Good Friday Agreement, are troubled past. So that's our problems. But what have we got? What have we got in favour? What have we got going for us? Plus and minus column, right? Minus column, as I said. Plus column, as I said. Right? So we should have had a strategy. To keep everybody happy, the DUP can campaign how they want. The SDLP, Sinn Féin, whatever alliance can all the Ulsters, the official unionists can campaign how they want. But depending on how the result comes back, we need to work together. Right? So the result came back. Britain is leaving. Bad move for Northern Ireland. Right? So what we should have, from day one, the day after that vote came back, all the political parties should have got together, said, we can negotiate ourselves, we can put ourselves in the pig's back. For the first time in history, Northern Ireland would be doing well for itself, of its own accord, where we're not relying on anybody. That was possible. There's a lot of sympathy out in the world for Northern Ireland. Both sides of the Atlantic, in the EU and in the US, a lot of sympathy. People see us as being the good guys and the victims in all of this when it comes to the British and the Empire, right? We could have done that, but we didn't. All the rest of them wanted to, but these fuckwits didn't. So Sammy Wilson says the DUP will not accept the UK deal. This was a couple of days ago. This is the 5th of September, I believe. I'll read a little bit of it. DUP's Brexit spokesman, Sammy Wilson, who, by the way, is a clown and considered to be a clown over here. These people are hardline, fundamentalist, Christian, young earth creationist psychos. They're against every social piece of social policy, social progress, anti-abortion, gay rights, equality of the, you name it, they're against it, right? And they think they're English. The DUP's Brexit spokesman, Sammy Wilson, has called for the EU withdrawal agreement to be scrapped, saying the party will not accept the deal. He said the deal, which includes a Northern Ireland Protocol, which placed the border down the Irish Sea. Right? They were never for this. They were always against this. But Arlene Foster, who's the First Minister and the leader of his party, said the protocol was now law and she was going to work to enforce it. There's a big split in the DUP at the minute. A lot of infighting going on. Whether that's going to spill over, because their party discipline is usually very good, but we'll see. She said that some would continue to fight it. She had to recognise that the protocol is reality now. Now, that's very pragmatic on the part of Arlene Foster. I wasn't expecting that, but there you go. The Brexit deal negotiated by Boris Johnson last October means the whole of the UK will leave the EU's customs union when the Brexit transition period expires at the end of 2020. However, under the Northern Ireland Protocol within the Withdrawal Agreement, Northern Ireland will continue to enforce the EU's customs code at its ports, and it effectively stays in the single market for goods. And we're considered EU citizens if we want to be as well. So we have Irish passports. We're dual citizen in Northern Ireland. We've got UK passports and Irish passports. So if we have an Irish passport, we're also an EU citizen. So you can see how it gets complicated. Also, if you don't know the thing about the border is unenforceable. The border is a random squiggly line drew by a British civil servant 100 years ago. It goes through people's houses, for fuck's sake. You can't. It's unenforceable, as we know. From the day it was set up, it was attacked until the Good Friday Agreement, until the ARS ceasefire in 1994, 1994. It was always attacked, right? So it's unenforceable. We know it's unenforceable. To suggest that, and this is the whole point, and this was exactly the point, because everybody knew if this was going to happen, the border had to go in the sea. Because if it went on the land, it was going to fucking write a fucking thing again, right? And we don't want to do that. But the DUP don't care. All they care about is sniffing the curtains in the Houses of Commons. That's it. That's their whole fucking raison d'etre. Buying and scraping, hoping that they're going to betraying their own people in order to get a fucking lordship. And going over and pretending to be one of these corrupt bastards over in the House of Commons and the House of Lords. But here, so I'll read another little bit of this. In a statement on Sunday, Mr. Wilson repeated his criticism of the deal, saying it must be scrapped or at the very least significantly changed. It's too fucking late. It took 2 years to get to that, and they're going out in 3 or 4 months. There's no time. This is the thing. You see, at the start of I remember during this whole Brexit thing, when the campaign was on, Britain was saying they're going to negotiate, they'll negotiate trade deals with other people that are outside the EU. And people were like, who? So, like China. So some journalist then goes to the Chinese ambassador or whatever, or puts a question into the Chinese government, says, are you negotiating? Because you're not allowed to negotiate the trade deal while you're in the EU. So Britain is it's out, but it can't, until January 2021, it can't start negotiating with other people. So they can't get all this stuff teed up from years back. They have to wait until this is all over, and then they can go forward. So somebody asked the Chinese, are you planning on doing a trade deal with Britain? They say they can get one done real quick. And the official Chinese response was, we didn't realise that Britain had 5,000 spare officials to do this. And I think it was on 9 years. Because that's a quick trade deal, especially with the likes of China. That's fucking super quick. These things take decades. You got to remember what a trade deal is. Everything from the wire in this lead, in this cable, the copper wire, what type of copper wire is it? What is that around the cable? What chemicals are in the cable? Are they fireproof? Are they not fireproof? How fireproof are they? This foam thing here, everything has to be written down. Someone has to think about it and fucking put it in a trade deal. This is why this is all fanciful bullshit. It's all nonsense. But this is about the British Empire. This is the mindset of the Boris Johnson and the, God help us, the average English voter. And I'm not going to say Britain, because Scotland voted against it. Northern Ireland voted against it. The Welsh voted for it. But if you now here's one that bet you didn't know this. If you take English retirees out of the Welsh vote, the Welsh voted against it. The Welsh voted to stay. It was English retirees that tipped them over the edge. And they only just got over there. The Welsh vote was very close. So this is an English thing. This is not Scotland, Northern Ireland, or Wales. Right? So The withdrawal agreement on the border, which places it down the Irish Sea, separating Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom. This is a fucking... what is this? A MacGuffin? A MacGuffin, remember we'll talk about that? Separating it from the rest of the United Kingdom. Northern Ireland is separate from the rest of the United Kingdom. On the 10 o'clock news the other night, they were showing people on English news, Britain's main news channel on the BBC, where Northern Ireland was on a map. No joke, the main 10 o'clock news. So, I mean, I don't mean like, no, they just happened to. No, that's what was the point. That's what will show people who don't know where Northern Ireland is. They don't want us. So, the withdrawal agreement on the border, which places it down the Irish Sea, separating Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom, was brought about by those who clamoured, campaigned and cajoled British negotiators to ensure that there were no checks between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic, the DUP MP said. Too fucking late. Right? Now, his... the Environment Minister for Northern Ireland is a guy called Edwin Poots. This guy is an idiot. Incompetence drips off this man. This is a guy that lobbied the Ulster Museum to get a creationist display. What's the word I'm looking for? You know what I mean? A creationist display put in the museum alongside the dinosaurs. Because they don't believe in dinosaurs. They don't think that dinosaurs existed. I think it's a trick by the devil to make us doubt the Bible. Because the Bible doesn't mention baby T-Rexes and all that with saddles on their back. Did you ever see that over in the Creation Museum in Kentucky? True story. A baby, what is it, a Triceratops or a Stegosaurus or something, with little Bam Bam and Pebbles playing in a river. Little blonde cave kids over here, and behind them is a little baby Stegosaurus with a saddle on its back. This fucking half-wit believes this. So and he's our environment minister, and he doesn't believe in global warming. It's true. He's actually our environment minister, and he doesn't believe in global warming. So, now, what this means is, whenever they say they're going to put the border in the Irish Sea, it means that they're going to build infrastructure at the ports, Larne, Belfast, Derry, I guess, Warren Point. And your goods are going to go through those facilities. So you come in a truck with a truck full of stuff. You go to the facility, you fill in the paperwork or do whatever it is that they do at ports. I don't know. But that's basically what it is. We don't have that now because we're all part of the European Union. Free movement of people and goods. That's the thing, right? So this infrastructure is being built right now. So the Northern Ireland Environment Minister, Edwin Poots, and Stormont officials are in disagreement over work on entry controls at local ports. The entry controls are required to implement checks and visits as part of the EU withdrawal agreement. In the Northern Ireland Assembly on Tuesday, the DUP minister was asked if he intended to temporarily stop work on the controls, and he says we'll have to wait and see what happens. Now, this is because he knew Boris Johnson was going to make this announcement yesterday. Can you dig it? He knew that this was going to happen. And Sammy the Streaker Wilson knew as well, because he says, wait, to see, something's going to happen. It was on Wednesday. And it did. So, the BBC understands the prospect of a temporary stop to the work at local ports has been causing friction behind the scenes. I won't read on anymore because it's all the same as what you know already. Now, on to this. This is all connect. I'm trying to connect the dots for you here. Stay with me, right? So, we don't want a border, a land border, because that was fought over, one of the things that was fought over for decades, and we don't want that. Good Friday Agreement got rid of that. Free movement of people and goods. European Union played a large part in that, played a large part in the continuation of it. So the border goes down the Irish Sea. It creates a de facto difference between the UK and Northern Ireland. I said there is a difference between the UK and Northern Ireland. I've been asked for my passport getting on a plane going to England all the time. I've been pulled in and although it was quite a while ago and questioned by security spooks at the airport because I'm from Northern Ireland. If you're of a certain age, that used to happen to us all the time. I'm sure you remember. There is a difference between us and the rest of the UK already. So the DUP don't want there to be any more. I suppose it's natural enough. I mean, if you think of it from their perspective, they're bound to think that. But it doesn't get round the fact that their obvious unionist positioning tops all other logical possible outcomes. And the logical possible outcomes that I'm referring to is clever fucking negotiating for the betterment of your people, to give them better opportunities in life, to give their children better opportunities in life. My children have got better opportunities than I have. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Now, with these dangerous fuckwits in charge, are their children going to have better opportunities than them? Or are they going to go backwards? This is what we're talking about, people. So we're going to try, and this is what the big concern is. Now, this is the other thing. The UK, Great Britain still thinks that I keep referring to it, but they have this empire mindset that they were reared with. And they still think they're the big dog. Now, they were the biggest dog at one time, but they are not anymore. As Bill Hicks says, whenever we were going to invade Iraq, people would say, yeah, but Bill, they've got the 5th biggest army in the world. He said, yeah, but after the first 3 armies, there's a big fucking drop-off. It's the same here. 6th biggest economy in the world. Yeah, after the first 2 or 3, there's a big fucking drop-off. That's not to say that it's not significant. It is, of course. But the UK is not who the UK thinks it is. So, who are the big dogs? You got China and the US. So, I don't expect China to give two fucks about what happens in Ireland or Northern Ireland. But, do you know who does? The US. This is an article from The Guardian today. Today, Wednesday the 9th, that's right. UK plans to change the Brexit rules to threaten the US trade deal, top Democrats say. I read a little bit of this. Senior Democrats have warned that any attempt by the UK government to backtrack on Brexit on Northern Ireland would jeopardise a future US-UK free trade deal and could hobble bilateral relations across the board if Joe Biden wins the presidency. This is not dependent on whether Joe Biden wins the presidency. There is a significant Irish-American caucus within the American power, within the US power structure, and a lot of them are very, very aware of what's going on here, and they're speaking out about it all the time. Biden, an Irish-American, I don't think he is. I think he just says that. I think he's half German or something. Is a staunch defender of the Good Friday Agreement, of which the US is the guarantor, right? And which requires an open border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Joe Biden is committed to preserving the hard-earned peace and stability in Northern Ireland. As the UK and EU work out their relationship, any arrangements must protect the Good Friday Agreement and prevent the return of a hard border. Biden's chief foreign policy on Tuesday night. Yeah, get this little bit here. Richard Neal, the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, which is a big, that's a big thing. The House Ways and Means Committee, which will have a decisive influence on the ratification of a trade deal. Richard Neal, listen to the name, Neal, right, surname Irish, said that he'd been repeatedly assured by British officials that there was no threat to the open border between the two Irelands. This just came out of the clear blue. No one was talking about this 72 hours ago, Neil told The Guardian. Joe Biden shares my position on this issue entirely. It'll be a very significant problem, and I have also reiterated time and again to the UK government that I can't imagine that we could develop a bilateral trade relationship if there was any return to a hard border. Now, the UK is placing all its eggs in the US trade deal basket. And he said there, if Joe Biden, now Donald Trump couldn't give a fuck, we know that. And Joe Biden might cure. I don't think Joe Biden's mentally competent enough to care about much at the minute. But whether Joe Biden wins or loses, and by the way, I don't think he's going to win. I think Trump's going to win. I'll do a podcast about that. Something happened the other day. It was very significant. But I think Donald Trump's going to win again. But whether he does or whether Biden wins or whether he doesn't, how to put this? The US's momentum going forward on a US-UK trade deal doesn't rely solely on Donald Trump. Pressure can come from the caucus, the Irish American caucus. We all know how Irish Americans are. They love it, right? And fair play to them, and they're proud of their heritage. Absolutely, so they should be. But the amount of them in the American political infrastructure, the ecosystem, is huge. It's absolutely fucking huge. I think if you're Irish, you're kind of aware of this, right? So there's that. Now, I've said this right from the very start. My position was we've been let down badly by most of our... I'm going to say the DUP. I'm going to put the blame on them because they were the ones that led the charge here in the north. We could have had the best of both worlds. We really could have. Now, the only solution is a united Ireland. It's the only solution. I think if this goes ahead, this will hasten the border poll. Unfortunately, I think things might have to get a little bit worse before they get better, and I hope not too much worse. But the only solution for us is a united Ireland and full EU membership again. Full EU membership. The UK, the British Empire, the UK is dead in the water. It's gone. It's breaking. The UK is not going to be around much longer. I genuinely believe that. Scotland's going to go. Northern Ireland's going to go. And there's even starting to hear Welsh nationalists, although there are Plaid Cymru, there are a few of those, but it's starting to get a bit of a head of steam up there because everyone's fed up with these Etonian half-wits, these children of empire, and they are that. I know that they're 100 years too late, but that's what they are. What they were raised to do didn't exist within their lifetimes. The British Empire technically ended at the end of World War II with the Suez Canal debacle. The socialist government of Egypt nationalised the Suez Canal. The British invaded because they were the colonial power. That's why you've got so many Egyptian artifacts in the British Museum. Talk about looting, not looting the town, looting. If you want to see looting, go to the British Museum. Don't worry about some fucking Walmart in America. It was a complete debacle. It was a complete failure. It was militarily a failure. Eisenhower, who was the American president at the time, what year is this? 1953, told the British to back off, to stop. The reason was because America had negotiated with Saudi Arabia, and they created in that negotiation the petrodollar. So the world's currency went from being the pound sterling to the American dollar. And the deal was, America says, you can have our military to Saudi Arabia We'll provide you with arms and weapons, and you can have our military anytime you need it. You just do all your oil trades in American dollars. And the Saudis went, okay. So then the British go in and invade Egypt, who are an ally of Saudi, of House of Saud, and the Sauds tell the Americans, and the Americans tell the Brits to back off. And they're also, because the Brits, they also were creating a bit of, destabilising that region, so they didn't want that to happen. And that was the end of the British Empire. It was already in decline. It was well in decline. Arguably, it ended the end of the 19th century, but it was well in decline by then. By 1953, that was the end of it. It was over. The UK, they come through the 60s. Their economy changes into a financial services economy. They did it very successfully. They allowed American dollars that were being spent outside of the US. They allowed them to be processed in London, and that's what created that whole banking infrastructure in London. And that's what the UK economy has been living on basically since. But the infrastructure of empire still exists. The Etonian, and that, by the way, you got to remember that that's what the empire is. The empire, you have the upper class, right? The lords, the ladies, and the wealthy, and then you have everybody else. There was no middle class. You certain merchants and whatever, but there technically weren't a middle. There wasn't a middle class. There were people that could rise up out of the working classes through skullduggery or through fucking hard work. I don't know, but they never rose to the. Very rarely, in fact, very rarely ever happened that they became a part of the ruling class or part of the upper class. And if they managed to buy their way into it, they were never considered that. It was usually their sons or their grandsons. It took a couple of generations for the stigma of new money to wear off. Once the empire started to spread out and get bigger, they couldn't administrate the regions that it had, because the British Empire was massive. You got to remember this, the old saying, the sun never set on the British Empire. And as someone added on to it, that's because God would never trust the English in the dark. Right? So this is so big, and they need administrators to administrate the empire. So they create the middle class. So they allow a certain amount of good chaps, as they would call him. He's a good chap. No, he's solid. To rise up out of the working class into the newly formed middle class, and they become the civil servants and the sergeant majors and the lieutenants. Never the colonels or the generals, but the lieutenants and the captains, right? And the managers. So that infrastructure that created that still exists. It's still around today. It's the British Civil Service. That's what that is. Eton, Cambridge, Oxford, the British public school system, the old school tie, even in the sport, cricket and rugby, etc., etc. It's all, thing like cricket. This is the thing. I was talking, like lawns. We have lawns at the front of our house. Do you know what that is? They're completely useless. And we go out with our little lawnmowers and we mow them in case the neighbours think we're fucking a wee bit scummy. And we mow our lawns and we throw our grass into the bin and we keep our grass nice and short and we're proud. We don't grow food on it. We should be growing food on it, but we don't do that. Instead, we mow it to look like what? The aristocrats invented lawn games, tennis, cricket, croquet, all those sorts of things. So whenever the middle class then start to get enough money to buy their own houses, they put lawns on them, front and back, to mimic the rich. That's what a lawn is. Right? So all the infrastructure of empire is still there. I have a lawn front and back of my house. I'm sure you do too. I try to let the grass grow as long as possible, especially whenever the flowers are coming out in summer. But so all that infrastructure is still there. Now, I'm going to play you a video. And this is by a guy called Professor Dorling of Oxford University. And it's not the whole video, right? But it's a fantastic video. It is fantastic. And it's over an hour long, and I watched it, and I will watch it again because it's that good. But I downloaded it, and I edited it down to a few key points just for the pod. So, let me just...
In 1970, it was earlier than that. Matthew Elliott was the chief
So, bear with me. So this video is called Brexit and the End of the British Empire. Now this was recorded last May. So this was before the election in November that wiped out Jeremy Corbyn and all that. And Boris Johnson wasn't yet Prime Minister. But I'll play the video.
In 1970, it was earlier than that. Matthew Elliott was the chief executive of this. The map, by the way, is Freddie Heineken's map of the splitting up of Europe. Freddie Heineken of the beer, in 1992, hired 2 historians to predict what would happen.
Now, for those of you listening, there's a map on screen, and it's a map of Great Britain and Ireland. Ireland, it's divided up. So what he's saying is, Freddie Heineken hired these historians to predict the breakup of Europe, what Europe's going to look like in the future. And this is what he reckoned that the UK will look like. There's a line across where England meets Scotland. Scotland isn't broken up. Ireland, there's a line around it. It's not broken up. Wales, there's a line around it. It's not broken up, although there's a bit of Glamorgan. And England is divided into about 7 different parts. Now,
to this continent in future. I'm not showing you Yugoslavia. They got it spot on.
Okay.
It's interesting to look at Britain. I think the kind of clever thing in this map is to create a region that's called Northumbria, but give its capital York. Anyway, it's really, really hard to think about how England might split. You probably can't even imagine the idea. You can certainly imagine Scotland.
When he recorded this video last May, May 2019, it does look, it would have been fanciful, but a year and a half later, it doesn't look so fanciful to me. I don't know if this is going to happen. I hope not. Well, certainly not England getting broke up. Well, England can do what it wants. I would like to see the Ireland bit. But as you're seeing a divided country, you're seeing everyone becoming more divided, you're looking at this and you're going, maybe.
I think it'd be great if Scotland went with a 66% majority. We can now understand the importance of getting a 66% majority. If you are going to try and create your own country, you really do at least want 2/3 of you to actually be in on the project. Ireland. Who knew there was no border? Who knew that we'd actually signed up that there is no border? You put a yogurt pot on that border and you were trespassing. We've discovered this. We, of course, had agreed to it. Benedict Cumberbatch.
He's put a picture of Dominic Cummings on the screen.
He is no Benedict Cumberbatch. This is Dominic Cummings, as played by Benedict Cumberbatch, if you watch the documentary. The campaign director of Vote Leave. They didn't mean to win. They didn't expect to win. If they had expected to win, and Dominic is not stupid, they wouldn't have done so many things which would later have been determined to have been illegal.
DUP money, remember?
They would have covered their tracks. They would have been more careful about the donations. They would have thought through what's going to happen. They, if you remember the faces of Boris Johnson and Michael Gove, wouldn't have looked so absolutely miserable the day after.
Can you remember that? Can you remember the day after when the Brexit was announced? Did you see them? They looked like they'd lost because they had.
When they didn't get what it was they thought they were going to get. Boris thought he was going to get man of the people. He thought he was going to get the job of Prime Minister. I'm not quite sure what Gove thought he was going to get, but it wasn't this. And Dominic appears to be in hiding as far as I can see. And I don't know where the court cases have got over the behaviour and so on. Didn't expect to win. Spread betting said they weren't going to win. The idea was a second referendum, ironically. Build up and actually have a plan. It was a little bit like going into Iraq without a plan of what you do after you've gone in. There was no plan by the Brexiteers. Why was there no plan? Because they didn't expect to win the first time. Dave. Let's just leave Dave for a minute. But maybe that way of behaving, that cocksuredness.
Listen to this. This is important.
Where did it come from? Who taught him to believe in himself? Why did we need schools that teach you to believe in yourself so much, to just trust your judgment? Imagine that you're ruling a quarter of the population of the planet with a very small number of people. You need to educate some people to absolutely believe that they're special and to go out and run entire countries. And it's very, very useful. It's a brilliant education system if you have an empire. It's not such a great education system in this country if you population size now of what we had.
So, as I said, I'm cutting this all up. So it's going to jump to another little section here. But before we go on to that, you hear what he said? The people that are in charge of us have been educated to run an empire. Why did they believe in themselves so deeply? Do you remember whenever David Cameron went out and resigned? Do you remember that? And he went back to the thing and he was hot mic'd. He went do as he walked in the door. Didn't give a fuck. Totally believe in themselves. Now, if that was you and you had failed so miserably and brought your country to the brink of what you understand to be the economic disaster, and possibly the start of the end of the United Kingdom, something that you claim to care so much about, you would hang yourself. You would go away, never to be seen again. And I'm talking. I mean, even the likes of Tony Blair, the Iraq War. He's still around. It's staggering. Because these people are raised like this. They're taught to be like this. And that's why we can't figure that. We can't get them. You and I can't figure this out. Who the fuck are these idiots? Where do they get off failing and then getting rewarded for failure? Because they're a part of this system called the establishment. Have you ever heard of a phrase called Perfidious Albion? Perfidious Albion is actually trending on Twitter at the minute, believe it or not. And this is a phrase from the 1800s. It was written, I think it was originally coined by a French playwright, and it was used basically the untrustworthy British. That's basically what it's shorthand for. To illustrate the untrustworthiness of the British, they referred to them as Perfidious Albion. The British Empire as Perfidious Albion. So this is not new. Getting betrayed, and us in Ireland getting betrayed. Now you got to remember, we're in a uniquely shitty situation. We're next door to them, and they can get fucking loads of fucking army and soldiers and troops and hardware and military and stuff. They can get that, and they did it. That's how they did it. If we were the other side of the world, we wouldn't be dealing with this anymore. But unfortunately, we still are. We're still having to deal in the 21st century, where we're talking about uniting Europe, and we're still dealing with people that have the mindset of the administrators that went into India and drew a line without ever visiting the region to create Pakistan, and putting in northern India a part called Kashmir, which is full of Muslims that don't want to be there, without ever having visited the place. Just did a draw line on a map. Northern Ireland, exactly the same. Through people's farms, through people's living rooms, literally drew a line on a map. Israel, Palestine, exactly the same. Bosnia, Yugoslavia, all the same. That mindset, where do they get off? Where do they get their confidence? They're raised to do it. There are never any consequences for them failing. They only ever fail upwards. And the only thing they have to do is to shut the fuck up. Zip it. Go away for a while and we'll bring you back. This is what we're dealing with. And I don't want my children to have to deal with it. I want it gone. I want them gone. They're not good enough for this island. I genuinely believe that's the way I've come to think about them. And I wasn't always that way. I was always a bit more sort of wishy-washy about things. You know, things are complicated. I don't care anymore. They need gone. They're going to hell in a fucking handbasket, and they're going to take us with them. I'll play a little bit more of this video, then I'm going to read you an article, and then we're going to call this.
The dates are the date at which we were not invited in, and the date at which...
Oh, sorry. He goes on to talk about the British withdrawal from Hong Kong.
We left almost always not of our choosing to leave.
So it's... So there's a picture on screen of a girl crying, a young girl crying. This is Chris, what's his name, the last governor of Hong Kong. And there was a sort of a traditional handing over ceremony sort of thing. And the daughter's crying her eyes out, a young girl there, and she's crying, and it's very sad. And the BBC, it's the end of the empire, and it was officially Britain's last colony. The girl was crying. She becomes a poster child for people being sad at the demise of the empire, etc., etc.
The picture there is of the last colony going, unless you think of Gibraltar as a colony, which the Spanish do. And it shows, how many of you can remember the young lady crying on the day? Yeah, you can. Yeah, they showed loads of pictures of her crying as the sun set and the Royal Yacht Britannia went off into the distance. Prince Charles, a young Prince Charles, is just off the picture with this incredible look in his face, which is, oh my God, what do I do? It's a woman, and she's crying. This is my nicest empire myth, if you like, because it's embarrassing talking about the empire. She wasn't crying because she was sad about the end of the empire. She's told us why she's crying. She was interviewed years later in a newspaper. She was crying because she couldn't understand why her mum and dad weren't letting her stay in Hong Kong so she could stay with her boyfriend. Because of course she was. She cried for 3 hours that day, and it was all filmed by the BBC, who then picked the bit to tell the story about the end of the wonderful empire. Jacob Rees-Mogg is publishing a book in a couple of weeks called Great...
Right, listen to this. If you take anything from this podcast today, this is it, right?
Victorians. The greatest Victorian he starts with is Lord Palmerston. Lord Palmerston sent the gunboats in to allow free trade. Free trade of what? It's free trade of the opium we were growing in India. So we could destroy the Chinese civilization because we were the biggest drug dealer the world has ever known. Why were we growing opium in India? Because we needed the Indians to raise some money somehow to buy the textiles. Why were they buying textiles? Because we destroyed their textile industry because we had textiles to sell them that we made in Manchester. Why were we making it in Manchester? Because we shipped people from Africa, because we encouraged slavery more than ever a country over to the Americas so they could pick cotton so it could be taken back to Manchester so it could be woven and sold in India so that the drugs could then be sent to China.
And he left a bit out. The countryside in England and Scotland and Wales had to be cleared out so they could get the workers to work in the machines that created the for the Industrial Revolution. So they basically took people from the countryside and put them in the fucking slums, their own people. So they were cruel to everybody else, but they were also cruel to their own.
Nobody has a touch on us. And you know, this would be fun to learn at school. History would suddenly not be boring. No trying to remember the names of the wives that Henry VIII beheaded for some odd reason, as if it matters anymore. You know, this is exciting stuff, but we don't teach it.
So, there we go. So this is what we're dealing with. This is why we're in this situation. It's why we're floundering. It's why we're flapping around. You know, like a fish that's been lifted out of the water and set on the side of the road. We've got no say in our futures. There's nothing we can do. Boris Johnson decided that he wanted to do the American negotiators, the head of the Ways and Means Committee, Richard Neal, said 72 hours ago we didn't know anything about this. The entire Brexit, the entire British, the entire United Kingdom economy going forward is dependent on a US-UK trade deal, which includes selling off the NHS, and we spoke about this. And why? Where do these people get off? How do they do it? How can they do it? How can they just go on gut instinct and they feel it and they go on because of this system, this establishment system designed to secure, support and feed the empire that doesn't exist anymore. But the infrastructure is still there. You could see Boris Johnson 100 years ago, right? You can imagine him as the Viceroy of Kashmir or Bangalore. You can see this in your mind's eye, can't you? Jacob Rees-Mogg, people like him. The British establishment is full of it. And we are being told what to do by them still. Even though they were always cruel, still told us what to do. Even when they were incompetent, still told us what to do. And now they're cruel and incompetent, and they're still telling us what to do. And we don't need them, we don't want them, we shouldn't need them, we shouldn't want them, and we need to stop being afraid, by the way. See this shit we can't afford. We can't afford. Bollocks. That's a load of shit. It's not true. I'm going to read this. This is the last article I'm going to read about it. And it's by a young journalist called Naomi O'Leary, who I am a huge fan of. And she does a great podcast called the Irish Passport Podcast. You want to check her out. She's fantastic. She's just recently been given the job as the Irish Times Brussels correspondent, European correspondent. So, the article's lengthy. I've just highlighted 2 sections. So, 30 years ago, the article is called Shared Island, How the EU Would React to an Irish Unity Referendum. 30 years ago, at a time when some European leaders were sceptical of German reunification, Ireland made an intervention to help it along that has never been forgotten in Berlin. Dublin assumed the rotating European presidency in January 1990, shortly after the fall of the Berlin Wall. At that time, Britain's Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and Italy's Prime Minister Giulio Andreotti had reservations about the unification of East and West, but Charles Haughey argued in favour, telling the Dáil that as a divided country we would have an underlying sympathy with the efforts of any people who wish to achieve the reunification. He went on to chair a special European summit in Dublin that turned out to be landmark, securing the backing of member states for unification and integration of united Germany into what will become a modern-day EU, right? This is what will happen with Ireland. A reunification, or an integration of a reunified Ireland into a modern EU. The words of German Chancellor Helmut Kohl to Haughey were, "Germany will never forget what you have done for us," and indeed it has not been forgotten. Ireland's significant contribution to bringing about German unification is mentioned in the second sentence of the German Foreign Office's page on German-Irish relations. Could Germany or another EU state play a similar role in the event of a referendum on Irish unity? Right? This is true, by the way. This is just when is this from? This is from, I think this is from Saturday or whatever. So I'll go on, right? So there's a paragraph called "Isolated Unionists." Apart from anything else, unification is seen as simplifying the question of managing the EU's external border, as bluntly acknowledged by Emmanuel Macron, right? Unionists are politically isolated in Europe. The consequences of their adoption of Euroscepticism, a failure to make links in continental political systems, and an over-reliance on London to protect their interests. How many times do we have to get fucked for these people to wake up? This means that, ironically, it might be the Republic's diplomats and leaders who end up explaining the unionist position and urging caution on the issue. I don't think I've met a unionist politician who has really understood how other European political systems work and how they communicate. They just don't have advocates for their cause, Dr. Clarkson said. Now, this is my point. They don't give a fuck about Europe. They don't give a fuck about anything. All they want to do is sniff the curtains in the Houses of Commons. That's it. That's all they care about. That's the end of a promotion to the House of Lords, as they would see it. Why anyone would want to go to that shameful place, but there you go. So, last section. Peace and cash. Ireland can't afford to be reunited. Bullshit. When addressing Northern Ireland, the European Commission usually focuses on the question of peace. The EU put the protection of peace at the forefront of the Brexit negotiations, and there is a sense of responsibility for maintaining it following years of EU funding for border and community peace projects over the years. In the budget agreement this summer, €120 million was set aside to continue such funding. If any vote were to arise, the reaction across the EU would depend upon... I know I'm going on a bit here, but if a referendum occurred according to the Belfast Agreement, with consent on all sides and decisive results, there would likely be cheers across the continent. Many continental observers are unconvinced that even conservative politicians in England will remain unionist in regard to Northern Ireland. Do you understand that? What that means? Many continental observers are unconvinced that even conservative politicians in England are unionists when it comes to Northern Ireland. They're unionists for Scotland, England and Wales. For us, no. And a successful referendum would be likely to be broadly seen as a tidy resolution of history. But until support for the idea is broad and formally declared, Brussels will likely hedge its bets. That's fair enough. Although there are people trying to get the official EU position to be that they want a reunification. I think the EU would probably... This is the last... This is it. I'm done with this. I'm finished now. So, this last paragraph. I think the EU would probably opt for a position of benevolent neutrality, set up the position that this is the matter for the island. But if Northern Ireland opts for integration in the EU, in Ireland, the EU will not stand on its way, Dr. Clarkson said. I presume that they will smother Northern Ireland in EU cash to try and keep things quiet. A tried and tested EU method. True. And Northern Ireland's integration into the EU system would be expedited. I don't think that would be a difficult position to arrive at. We could be full European members, full EU members this time next year. Northern Ireland and a united Ireland could be fully integrated into the European Union as a full and equal member. We would get shared with cash, and your children's futures would be better than yours. And you, as a parent, will have done a good job because you will have made your child's future safe, secure, and more safe and more secure than yours. The UK is over. It's gone. The US doesn't want to do a trade deal with it if they're going to fuck about with Ireland. The EU are exasperated. They don't know what to do because they're dealing with these fucking dogs of empire. Blustering buffoons that have so much self-confidence, it's harmful. And the EU wants us. They see us as being the victims. They see us as being the good guys. It would be a tidy resolution of history. And so it would. We can sort this out. We can be full members of the EU this time next year. I know it's not likely to happen, but technically it's possible. The EU are not going to be against this. Everybody loves the Irish. It's true. Diplomatically, we're the most powerful country. Ireland is the most powerful country in the world. Did you know that? That's true. Diplomatically, Ireland is the most powerful country in the world. The goodest country in the world. 2 or 3 years ago, Ireland, the goodest. That was it. There was a scientist on it. He said, and he defined the word goodest. Who gives the most money per head of population for their income? Who does the most good around the world? Who does? It was Ireland. Everybody loves Ireland. We grew up with this myth, thinking these things. We hear these things, you don't realise, but then you start to see that it's actually fucking true. So there we go. There we go. Done. We're going to go into... That was heavy, dudes, wasn't it? That was heavy. Like, share, subscribe, by the way. If you're on the YouTubes, get over to the podcast. If you're on the podcast, get over to the YouTubes. Share. Would you share this? I really appreciate it if you did. No, there's not too many of you sharing. But here we go. So we're going to do record recommends. And there it is. My cousin Barry Kerr. Barry Kerr is a famous musician and artist. He's living down in Dublin now. He got married a couple of years ago to the lovely Sheila Denver, who's a harpist and a scholar. And we were at their wedding, and it was one of the best wedding I was ever at, hands down, over in Westport, in County Mayo. But so Barry's a great guy. He's one of my favourite people in the world. And I asked him for 4 record recommends for you, and he very kindly sent these up. So I'm going to read these out. And again, much like my record recommends from last week, I've heard the Planksty one. I haven't heard the others. So number 1, which is the one on the top, what is it, top right there? Carry Your Kin by The Breath. Number 2 is Planksty, After the Break. Number 3 is Bon Iver. And number 4 is Moving Hearts, and that's an anthology of Moving Hearts. So what do you think of that? Isn't it good? I'm going to go and check them out this week. It's brilliant. I love it. People give me record recommends, and then I spend the week listening to them. I think I love it. It's absolutely brilliant. And so far, the 4 of the 8 record recommends that we've had this past 2 weeks, there's only one of the records I've actually heard, so I get to hear 7 new albums, and it's fantastic. So, and if you've got a record recommend for me, do this. Take a picture. Put yourself in it if you feel so. If you would. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But I would like it if you did. And send me them through, and I'll record recommend them for you. And anyone that listens to this can get 4 awesome albums to listen to that they'd never heard before. So I'll read those again. Carry Your Kin by The Breath, Planksty, After the Break, Bon Iver by Bon Iver, and Moving Hearts anthology. Brilliant. Awesome. All done. Thanks a million, Barry. Appreciate that, cuz. And me and Barry's working on some stuff. Hopefully we get a chance to do some stuff together soon. With some songs to do. But we're only in the negotiation stage. We're going to want to see what he needs to know what my fee is. So yeah. So there we go. All done. I hope you learned something. I hope I cleared some stuff up. Like, share, subscribe, everybody. And yeah, I'll see you at the next one.